It's 5 o'clock on this special June 12th, 2013 City Council meeting, and we'll call it to order. Roll call, please.
Psychos.
Here.
Rundquist.
Here.
Swinston.
Here.
Shire. Rachels.
Here.
Fish.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum. The item of business this evening is to hear presentations from, well, first of all, I guess we need to hear from Kent Madsen, our consultant, who will give us an update on where we are.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council members and staff. Just to recap where we are, the city decided to have a special meeting this evening to take a couple of steps. First of all, there are a couple of developers that have indicated an interest to redevelop the RTC campus. We had received an indication that the two groups were entertaining opportunities to work together. So we set the special meeting this evening to determine whether or not they would be working together, and if so, to make an award of joint site control. We asked the developers to indicate that if they were not going to be making a joint proposal, to let us know by last evening, and individual competitive proposals would be considered tonight in order to award site control to one developer or the other. After the council made that determination on Monday, June 3rd, I communicated that process to the developer groups, both in email, followed up by a couple of letters, followed up by some telephone conversations concerning process, timelines, and the like. So as of today, we've made it clear to both of the developers who have indicated that they are not going to be making a joint proposal, that the City Council will consider what their proposals for redevelopment are, and if the City Council is in a position to make a decision this evening, could award site control to one group or the other. All of which is contingent upon the city and the developer eventually entering into a mutually agreeable development agreement that will set forth the requirements for redevelopment of the campus. In connection with indicating to the developers that this meeting would be held and decision would be made tonight, we provided them with a copy of the RFP document that was circulated a couple of years ago. We indicated that due to the timelines that we were dealing with, we didn't expect strict compliance with the RFP document in terms of submittals, but at least the contents of the RFP would provide guidelines and information to the developers that might help them decide what to submit to the city, how to formulate their development proposal, and also meet some of the objectives that the city had previously determined were important to award site control. And within the RFP document, there are criteria, there are objectives indicated, and we discussed previously that this evening the evaluation criteria that's set forth in the RFP document could guide the council in their decision tonight. So you do have some objective standards to measure the proposals. Those objective standards and criteria have been communicated to the two developer groups. So hopefully they will orient their development proposal in their presentation tonight along those lines to help enable you to make a reasoned decision. So my understanding is that each of the developers will be given an opportunity to present. Yes. Both of the developers have previously submitted concepts in writing, and I believe that there's going to be some public comment, and the city would then have the opportunity to deliberate.
Thank you. Our protocol will be to have individual presentations, and according to the results of the flip of the coin, colonnade, Mr. Terrence Schultz will, I'm sorry, I've got it wrong here. The results showed that Mr. Willie of Historic Properties will present first, and in that process, the council will have opportunity to ask as many and all the questions that they need to regarding his proposal, and then we'll open it up if there are public comments or questions and so on that need to be answered, and then we will go to Colonnade and Terrence Schultz, who will give his presentation, and we will follow the same protocol with questions by the City Council and then the public, and then we will we'll adjourn to a closed meeting to discuss questions and strategies regarding a potential sale of Regional Treatment Center property, and we will reconvene again, and we will depend on the advice of our counsel here as to how to proceed from there. Any questions, so on? Then, Mr. Willie, may we begin?
Thank you. I'm Ray Willie from California. Wanted to say thank you to the city and the city staff and all of the folks. They've been extremely helpful in assisting us in the process of finding a way to preserve a creative way that makes economical sense to preserve the Kirkbride. We've formed an entity called Historic Kirkbride LLC for the express purpose of bringing together not only the folks from Historic Properties, our group, but some other outside folks to put together a company that is formed just for the purpose of making the proposal, and if we get the award, to go forward with the renovation and restoration and operation of the building. Our original proposal when we were here about a month ago, I think it was May 6th, we mentioned we would like to put in affordable apartments, 5 or 6 restaurants, eateries, and hopefully a hotel. But at that time, we did not have, we'd had some preliminary talks on the hotel, but we didn't have an operator or any solid commitment from a hotel organization. But that was what we had proposed, and then taking the gymnasium to kind of convert that or use that, the top floor for a gymnasium, the bottom floor, or what's called the basement, to provide a fitness center so that hotel guests and apartment tenants could use that facility alike. The restaurants, I think we mentioned what we have going in. We have commitments from 4 restaurants. 4 are full-blown restaurants, a family pizza store, barbecue joint, and a sports bar. And then the 4th is a scaled-down restaurant. It's a coffee/bagel eatery. We could see putting maybe one more restaurant and possibly a dessert-oriented component to that mix, if that makes sense. All of these businesses are new businesses. We would not be looking to try and find tenants that we would pull from other existing buildings. So we're really just laterally moving one from one side to the other and leaving a vacancy over there. And we've tried to make a complementary mix of tenants that don't offer a lot of competition to the city. These are specialized businesses that we felt would fit and make sense. So at that time, the only question mark in our mind was the hotel operation. Now, since May 6th, in the ensuing month or so, we have secured a hotel specialist that puts hotels in. And he's here tonight, and he's going to speak for just a couple minutes. Because we have locked up that hotel component, it enables us to eliminate the dependency on the affordable housing. We needed to originally offset some of the costs because the hotel was a huge question mark, and we even thought that we might have to leave half of that whole complex empty for a while, preserve it, but in effect mothball it until we could find a use. We thought a hotel made sense, but we just didn't quite have it. I just got back from Southern California. I was there Thursday and Friday, and we've put together a deal. But because we have that element in play, we do not have to make the application for affordable housing. And that means a couple things. It means, first of all, the apartments will be market rate. They'll be just normal, nice, new, lots of amenities. Has nothing to do with affordable. It never was Section 8. They were actually Section 42. They're not exactly federally assisted. They were going to be just what they call affordable. But now none of that is going to happen. We don't need to do that, so these are just going to be typical market rate apartments. And the other thing that means is we don't have to make an application. We don't have to make an application that has a good chance of being denied. The one we did achieve in Newcastle, Indiana, was extremely competitive, and one in a handful were awarded, and we were fortunate to get that award. So there would have been risk. We could have made the application, spent a lot of time and money, and had to wait till November 7th and find out we may not have gotten it. So all of that is off the table. Because of the hotel, we can come in and proceed immediately without affordable housing, just normal apartments. And no time delays, no risk, no dependency on any sort of third-party approval. We have a master plan, and you have a sheet, I think, a full size, 11 by 17, and there's the board over here to my left. We've always felt that the focal point of this property is, as you come in, is what they call the old administration building, that we would propose to be a lobby, a very ornate, bringing it back to its original grandeur, historic hotel lobby. We would like to be able to put the portico back. We hope to be able to do that. We don't see why we couldn't, for valet parking and so forth. But you enter in there, and we would propose bringing it back, all the original hardware and all the original style of wood and so forth, to make it a beautiful hotel lobby, registration area, a lobby bar, executive offices for the employees, a museum showcasing the history of the Kirkbride. There's certainly plenty of room. I think it's 44,000 square feet of space in there, and we think it would be ideal for an entry point, a grand entrance to the complex. Then to the right, the purple wing would be the hotel, approximately 120 rooms, plus or minus. And we've listed some amenities there, and I don't need to read them all, but I will say one of the features we would plan to do is it shows outside a pool and a spa and outside clubhouse, etc. Not all the amenities are shown on this. For example, fire rings and things to sit around, conversation pits and things of that nature. But all the way around to Building 23, at the very end of the loop at the top, we would put in the basement a indoor pool and indoor spa to service the hotel guests. Obviously, for inclement weather during part of the year when it's winter and so forth, where the outside pool area couldn't be used. Building 29, off to the top left, or mid-left, is the memorial building. I think it's roughly 6,000 square feet. We would propose using that for a couple of years as a temporary field offices for what we're doing. We would have a staging area back in there for construction behind a fence where the workers can assemble and materials dropped off and so forth. And that would be offices for the construction folks, all the different trades, the contractors, plenty of space in there for them all to set up shop, general contractor, superintendent, job superintendent, and so forth. At the end of the period, when the project would be completely finished, we would propose using Building 29, that 6,000 square feet, for executive offices for the entire complex. We will most likely have a general manager that oversees the whole complex. Another thing that we're going to do is we would propose to hire a marketing specialist that would work out of that building, whose job it is to promote, in the larger context, this facility, this complex, to draw people into the town of Fergus Falls, to attract people from a variety of areas, obviously the county, but beyond that in some quarters. And that would be the goal of an ongoing marketing strategy of bringing people in. Part of the idea behind that is a destination where people are drawn in. Like there's a clustering restaurants is a proven winner You put 3 or 4 or 5 good eateries that are exciting, and these are very unique eateries, that people will be drawn to and attracted to and think, so, well, we can go there and we can pick and choose and see what we're feeling and how we're feeling and how we want to utilize those restaurants. So we would propose that the whole thing is to try and draw people in to the community of Fergus Falls. Building 30 is just the electrical station. That would stay pretty much the way. And then we're not sure about Building 32. It is a great building, has potential, and we think it could be something in the future. We're not sure yet. Maybe over time we would find a specific use for it. There would be some temporary jobs created through construction, and I'm not sure how many that would be, all the different trades and so forth. I'm not sure how local. We'd use local as much as we can. But the real, I think, key is the permanent jobs. We believe there will be about 140 jobs through the restaurants. About 2/3 of those are part-time, and some of them are very part-time in the restaurant business. But they're jobs, and 40 jobs in the hotel, and about 10 or 15 in a mixture between apartment manager and apartment maintenance person or two, groundskeeper or two, and then the staff in Building 29 that are running the complex and so forth. So probably right around topping out at about 190 truly sustainable permanent jobs. I wanted to introduce Charles Noe, and he is from Southern California, and I'm going to let him speak for just a couple minutes to the issue of the hotel, and then I'll come back and wrap up if I can do that. Thank you.
May I speak from here, Mr. Mayor?
The television can't hear you. Please come forward if you would.
Good evening, Honorable Mr. Mayor, distinguished members of the City Council, and respected ladies and gentlemen from the beautiful community of Fergus Falls. It is my honor to report to you that I have taken a great tour of the facility, the former state hospital treatment center, and it was, in my first impression, immediately magnificent and a prominent facility that I have seen from the levels that used to be rooms, offices, and even preparation areas for food and beverage. And obviously the seasonality and being able to make the project break even to create a profit, which will take Herculean efforts. However, I think judging from the extent of the facility, I believe it would be a shame to not use it, at least partially, as a hospitality mixed-use facility. So towards the hotel, my name is Charles Noe. I have been actively engaged in the hospitality industry since the 1970s, and have worked both United States market, West Coast, Midwest, and Hawaii overseas. Have training in the hotel management and have taken experience in new openings, renovation, and turnaround of urban hotels, airport hotel, resort hotel of many different types. So from my perspective as an industry specialist, I do feel that the facility boasts a great sense of arrival, even as it is in the state today and the condition. I do believe that because of the facility that is available, it should not be impossible to make it into a hotel and hotel mixed use where we can offer exceptional services, including food and beverage, events, and apparently welcome guests not only from the immediate area, of great state of Minnesota, but neighboring states as well as, I believe, from overseas market, meaning both oceans, the Atlantic as well as the Pacific Oceans. The reason why I can say it with a reasonable degree of belief and confidence is going to be because the number of visitors from those overseas market, no matter what economic forecast the industry submits, is on the increase. There are emerging markets that show great, what I call business and leisure combined, either be-leisure or agri-leisure, agriculture combined with leisure. And technology and entertainment are also strong market segments. And I do believe that with the right mix of the facility and marketing efforts, we and you should be able to invite a good measure of and capture the share of the market that is available in this part of the United States. So I would like to also report that determining the right type of the product on whether how many stars of a hotel can this be, and honestly speaking, I do not wish to mislead anyone's expectation, because it requires a lot of study into the feasibility and the market condition, and everyone talks about regardless of the market recovery in our country and outside the U.S., there is a concern about deflationary depression on the horizon, potentially, including the decline of oil prices, etc. And I do hope sincerely that these are all just conspiracy outlook and not really with truth. Nonetheless, in a hotel feasibility, we have to look at the sustainability and survival of the project, regardless of the seasonality and regardless of the economical cyclical challenges. So the model that we always look into is absolutely offering excellent fundamental services of accommodation, food services. Nonetheless, we also look into building alliance businesses, meaning, as we talked about, the spa business, entertainment, financial sector, including technology, energy and data technology, etc., to be able to invite the businesses that are currently not active or as active as it could be in this area, so that we can all enhance the ability to generate a revenue and minimize the effect, negative effect of seasonality, and be able to make not only a break even for the community as well as for the developers, but be able to gradually and persistently increase the profitability and be able to optimize the creation of employment from this project. So I think I have taken more than 2 minutes, and I shall subject myself to any question or comments that you might have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. No.
We've assembled a group, a team, called Historic Kirkbride LLC, specifically for the restoration and renovation of the RTC building, as well as for its ongoing operations. Our group is a large, broad-based consortium of various professionals, seasoned team of real estate developers, marketing specialists, some celebrities, professional athletes, et cetera, recognized business leaders, pooling their talents and, in some cases, their money to pull something like this off. As the principals of this group, a variety of us, we have done over 24 of these historic renovation projects over the last 33 years. The most important thing I would stress is historic renovation is complex, and it involves complicated taxation structures. We use the federal historic rehabilitation tax credit. We use other types of tax credits. We will use probably the new markets tax credits. And sometimes these things are a little difficult to do. It doesn't normally fall in the hands of just a real estate developer, but a developer that does historic preservation redevelopment. And you have strenuous and rigorous standards you have to adhere to, et cetera, et cetera. And that's our specialty. It's a niche. It's a specialized, very highly specialized group with very focused, measured people involved that can pull off something of this size and magnitude. And we feel that our group is qualified. We have experience and track record. We have established relationships. For example, bringing these eateries to bear, we have those relationships established, and we are able to bring those in from the outside. So we have established relationships in various sectors. I think industry credibility and credentials, et cetera, to be able to do what I think is a very unique but very complicated specialized project. Our request tonight is that you would consider our proposal and select us as the group to move forward. As Mr. Kent Mattson mentioned, I totally agree 100%. The decision that would be made tonight to grant us the rights to develop this is completely controlled and tempered and subject to our group and the city negotiating and drafting and agreeing on a mutually acceptable development agreement. So I would like to request that we are granted the right to proceed under those conditions. And the conditions being that we'll take whatever amount of time we need to develop, excuse me, to draft the development agreement that is suitable to all parties, take the time that the city needs to do due diligence for our group, and take the time that we need, like Charles and so forth, to sort out the fine details. The numbers that we have provided in this say, you know, several times, these are approximate, and we have to kind of fine-tune some of this, and we would like the opportunity to be selected as a developer that allows us to go forward and do some of that and do all of those things in the next 2 or 3 months or whatever it takes. I had a suggested timeline in there, and it's just totally suggestive. It may not be very realistic. The city may need more time, or we, you know, we're not in any hurry. We're not asking to be handed the keys to the building, take ownership or anything like that, take possession, but to be granted the right to take the next step subject to all of those other terms and conditions. So that's what we would ask for tonight, and I'm happy to answer any questions that any of you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Willie. Council members, your questions. Tim.
Yes, your proposal as currently drafted, would that involve demolition of any portions of the RTC property? And if so, would that jeopardize any of the historic tax credits that you plan to apply for?
Yes to demolition. The old administration building would be removed, or excuse me, the new administration building, I'm sorry. And you can see on that site plan, it's dotted out. So the footprint is there, but it'll be removed. Some buildings have already been removed, of course, and I think the tin shed in the back will be removed. We would make sure with the State Office of Historic Preservation that that's not a problem, but generally speaking, you can fractionalize and divide these off, and they have allowances for that. And for the purpose of historic tax credits, there's a benchmark of the year it was built and so forth. So we do not believe that would be a problem, but that would be one of the things that we would sort out and make sure of before we proceed.
Yeah, may I just simply add there that Historic Registry is one of those goals the city has for the entire campus, Federal Registry. And at the present time, only the Kirkbride and maybe one or two other buildings are part of that, but our goal is to include the entire campus, so we don't want anything jeopardized by needless demolition.
Yeah, and of course, we're in the business of saving buildings and restoring them and bringing them back to their glory. So we wouldn't propose or dream of doing anything like that, and we certainly wouldn't jeopardize our own tax credit, nor the state tax credit. We would be very cautious and judicious in how we approach that and make sure that we have that clearly covered before we would take any action like that. This, frankly, would be stuff that we would do in the next month or 2 or 3 months before there's even, a final point where possession. We wouldn't really take possession of the building and control the building until the city does the work that they would propose to do. Anyway, so there's plenty of time in there to deal with all those issues. But that is one. You can achieve Part 1 of the NPS standards for tax credits by either being on the National Register or by being in a historic district recognized by the city. So we will sort that out and find out, but it will not be a problem. We'll work within the parameters.
You have a second reference to demolition on number 9 on your proposal there, demolition/surface parking. What is that?
Excuse me. On this, Hal?
I don't have one of those.
It's on the first page of your,
Second page.
It's on the email that Bill sent to us.
We would be taking out that tin building that's in the back of the property and put parking, possibly put parking back in there. We've moved parking around. In one of the earlier ones, renderings, it was on the top end. We've slid it down closer to the restaurants for the restaurant parking. So there would be the possibility of demolition. When I use the term demolition, though, throughout this, it's referring not to knocking buildings down primarily, or all really, except for, we'd like to get rid of the new administration building if we can. I'm referring to interior demolition of, hanging things and stuff. That's the term we use in that business, and so it doesn't rise to the level of knocking buildings down. It's cleaning up the inside and that type of interior cleanup, not knocking walls down.
Thank you. Yes, Ben.
well, first of all, thank you very much for being here tonight. And,
Thank you.
on page 3, if you still have that proposal in front of you, sorry. I just had a couple questions as far as the EB5
Yes.
investments, whether you've, if you could talk a little bit, first of all, have you used these before? What kind of jobs so is there enough jobs for the money you're searching for? And then, sorry not to list a million questions, but at the same time, if you wouldn't mind just kind of walking us through each of the 5 funding sources you have and kind of letting us know which ones you've used in the past, how comfortable you are with being successful obtaining these funds on this project, and just kind of walk us through any funding information you could.
Sure. The first one is the bonds money from the state that we think is around $4 million. Everything is kind of rough numbers and approximate, but that is being retained by the city to use towards the property in ways that are acceptable. And we understand those are limited and they're specific. A HUD loan is a loan for the market rates apartments. It takes an application, but it's not an application that you're denied for unless you don't fill it out right and do the right paperwork for it. It's a process of allowing a loan to be made that is very favorable terms for this kind of housing. The federal historic rehab tax credit is a 20% credit on qualified expenses. Now, not all expenses are qualified, and certain things are and aren't. Now, things that aren't are exterior stuff, landscape, parking lots, carpet unless it's glued. If it's tacked down, it's not acceptable. So most of the expenses of renovating the complex would be qualified, and 20% of that that's qualified would be around $4 million. State historic rehab tax credit is the same program. It's a little higher, it's still 20%, but the reason it nets out more is on the number 3 item, we would syndicate that out, meaning sell it. You don't really sell a tax credit, but you syndicate it out. And we have a tax syndication attorney that we've used, and he's engaged in this project. So in the course of selling a tax credit, you discount it. And the companies that buy them, the big companies are Exxon, Mobil, they're making lots of profit. They buy a tax credit, they may pay 83 cents or 87 cents on the dollar. So there's a discount, and there's some legal fees to that. So we net out more on the state one because we can turn right around and sell it back at 90%, is my understanding. The other one is less, it's in the 80%. EB-5 loan is a program that's designed to attract foreign investment, and there are job creation restrictions that have to be fulfilled. Generally, for every $500,000 to $1 million, depending rural, urban, you have to create 10 full-time or 20 part-time jobs. There are some exceptions to that, and there are 2 ways of doing an EB-5. You can do an EB-5 equity, which has more stringent requirements. The EB-5 loan is the one we've proposed, and so in a sense that's equity that we are bringing in because it's a loan, and so is number 2. We're borrowing that, so that's our equity we're bringing in. As to having done these before, I've never done number 1 with the city-state here. We've participated on HUDs, and yes, on number 3. We've never done a project at all in this state, so we've never done a state of Minnesota, but we have done other states, and we have not done any EB-5s ourselves yet. New market tax credits at the bottom there, we will probably utilize those. Maybe as a replacement for the EB-5 or in conjunction with. We have met with the EB-5 people in Fargo, North Dakota, and we've met with the New Markets tax credit people in Detroit Lakes. And they both gave us extremely positive reactions to our projects and said that we would qualify. And we would qualify because of the project, but because of also we are established group that would work for their, they felt would work for their requirements. So we had a good positive meetings with them. Our tax credit attorney, syndication attorney, also feels real confident in the ability for these numbers to be proven. And of course, for the most part, we could prove these numbers out in a period of so many months as we're doing some of this due diligence. So it's not like there's a either-or risk. We can take the time to make these applications and make sure we get these approvals way before we get to a point of taking possession of the building.
Thank you.
Other questions, Jay?
Yeah.
Has your group worked with Mr. Noel before?
I've known Charles for about 20 years, but we have never done a hotel. So no to the hotel part. We've done other projects and things together, but not a hotel. This would be our first.
May I ask, how does he fit into your plan? How do we do our due diligence regarding
He's a part of our group.
his expertise?
Mm-hmm. Yes. And Charles is going to bring to bear a hotel. He's not sure exactly how that'll play out. He's working that through, but we will deliver a hotel. And he's done lots of deliverings of hotels. His last was the Knickerbocker, the famous historic Chicago hotel that I think it was last year
2011.
I'm sorry, okay, that he repositioned, renovated, and rebirthed. So he has specific skills and expertise, and so he's right in there with us as an investor and a partner. It's all one cohesive group doing this. So all of this would be under the umbrella of Historic Kirkbride LLC. So you wouldn't be dealing with fractionalized ownership or anything like that.
Other questions?
One more follow-up.
Yes.
Last meeting, you were pretty upfront and straightforward about when you were considering applying for the low-income tax credits, that was a make or break, and there's a chance. Do you see anything, any of these funding sources as similar? I mean...
No. No, the other one was a huge thing and risky, and more likely to get turned down than awarded. But we wanted to take a crack at it. But because we are able to bring a hotel into play, it mitigates and eliminates the need to use and rely on some other device like the affordable tax credit mechanism for that. Taking that out of the equation, there is nothing in this proposal that I would say has any major question as to getting approved for. For example, the Federal Historic Rehab Tax Credit, there's no limit to the money. If you do it right and you adhere to the standards, you will get the award, or you'll get the approval. So it's not based on a competitive process, and it's not limited by pools of money, like the affordable tax credit was. And that was the one we were very concerned about. What I'm basically saying is we feel confident that we can move forward immediately with this plan without any at all significant a question mark as to any of these funding sources. And our tax credit attorney, who is in Charlotte today, so he's on the road and traveling, is happy to field any questions or any communication. You can directly speak with him. He does many of these deals a year, and he feels extremely confident in this project and in these numbers.
Sorry, one more
Sure.
question. Does your group have any plans for the green space in front of the building at this point in the future, or any of the other green space associated
I haven't
with?
thought much about the green space. I would think just leaving it the way it is beautiful, but I wouldn't imagine we'd build anything or do anything like that out there. We want hiking, biking trails and things that are pretty much established, I think, people to access it. And, when I've been out there the last few times, it seems like the public access it like it's a park. And I see people biking and riding, walking their dogs. So I couldn't imagine doing anything different to it. It's such a beautiful presence as you pull up to this facility. But I'd sure be open if there's any thoughts or ideas that you all would like to see happen to it.
I personally agree with what you're saying, that it's the way it is the way it is.
Other questions? Yes, Tim?
Yeah, just one quick question. I see that you cite private equity as one of your financing sources, but when it comes to the specific numbers, I don't see any figures there. I realize it may be difficult to give an exact figure, but do you have any sort of ballpark estimate?
Yes, I do. We think the numbers that we've put on page 3 are realistic, and our contribution would be loans that we're signing for. 2 of those 5 are loans, so that's our contribution, so to speak. We hope to not have to come out of pocket. We are prepared to come out of pocket to the tune of $5 million for private equity. We don't think we'll have to. We'll prove that out, but we're willing to do that if it's absolutely necessary. But I was hesitant to put it up here. I do not believe it will be needed, and we sure don't want to have to do that. We feel it's enough of a contribution with this other money we're signing for.
Okay, thank you.
Stan?
Since your last meeting with us, your vision for expanded usage of the buildings, is that correct?
When you say expanded, not really.
More, or?
I don't think it was expanded. The problem that I walked away with at last meeting is we didn't have a hotel operation figured out. So I don't think any of the spaces have changed or uses, but we've conquered that hotel piece. And that is a major piece to the overall puzzle that enables us to not have to make a application that is subject to third-party approval.
Okay?
I don't know how much you may have talked with Mr. Mattson or not. Say we were to make a decision tonight, or we're to say, okay, we choose you. What do you have in the back of your mind that's going to be a difficulty or a stumbling block setting up with the city, because negotiating an agreement is always negotiating? What types of things from what you've seen are the biggest concerns or the biggest things we're going to have to get over?
I can tell you what won't be a concern, and that is the ability to work with the city. They've been unbelievably accommodating. I don't see anything negative there. I have not contemplated what could be negative. I don't foresee any negative. To get the federal historic tax credit, there is a window of time for work to be done. So if we're going to claim that work, you don't have to spend the money yourself. Someone else can do it, and you can put it in part of your portfolio. But there are some time restraints. So maybe one thing that we would have to look at carefully is the overall timing from start of what the city does, so we can claim that on the tax credit, to our work comprising that in a window of time. That would be something we'd look at. I don't see it as a major stumbling block, but an issue to deal with. There are probably some issues like that. But nothing, of major significance comes to my mind. And I will say that we've done numerous development agreements with other cities, and we certainly could provide a few of our old ones as templates to look at. And it's a back and forth, and you sit down and work out the details and negotiate. But we would be an easy partner. We're not demanding it's got to be this way or this time and pushing for it. And things do take time, and certainly when the city does work, it may have to be certain types of bids and certain protocols that are followed. So, those are just, to me, not stumbling blocks, but just typical issues to work through.
Question. I don't remember if at our last meeting you mentioned it or not, and not to suggest that this would be a stumbling block, but have you talked to the owners of the other parcels that are connected?
No, I was provided the name and number. Are you referring to Mr. Jeff Schlossman?
Correct.
Yes. Harold Stanislawski gave me his name and number and said at some point we'd probably want to talk to him, and we certainly will do that, but I have not done that yet, and I'm not aware of anyone else that has adjacent parcels.
That's the one I was.
Yeah, but yeah, we look forward to talking to him.
Other questions? I have a question regarding the change from the earlier proposal, which incorporated a request for city involvement in helping the process of applying for the historic or the low-income house credits, which have not then materialized. The city has participated and supported that effort. Please explain how that is being utilized at this point in time.
How what is being utilized, the support, or?
The support.
Do you mean money, or?
Yeah, some
I think
money.
he's referring to the request you made from the EIC.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, yeah. The application that will be made for the HUD loan is very similar to the affordable housing loan. The same sort of surveys and studies are required, and we've engaged those. Some have already been here and done their work, and some are in progress. Most of it's already been done in anticipation of the application for the low-income housing tax credit. We've same law firm doing the same sort of work, just a slightly different application for that. So nothing hardly has changed, certainly not on the money end of things. And very little is different on the application. It is a very similar one with all the same mandated studies and so forth that have to be a part of that.
Thank you.
And same legal fee from his company.
Thank you.
Maybe one last question.
Yes, Ben.
For Mr. No. I know you've worked on a lot of hotels, and obviously probably none in a community the size of Fergus Falls. Could you just talk to that a little bit about your confidence level of a successful project on a community this size with the clientele that you?
You may want to use
Thank you for the question, Mr. Shearer. Thank you. There are larger hotel markets and smaller hotel markets. And obviously, when we look at strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat of a market, size of the market is an important question. And in my experience, if we ask 10 people about the size of the community of less than 50, 60,000, or somewhere from 30, 40,000 in population, I think most people will say that is a weakness. And they may have a good reason to think that way. It's an instinct. Because the larger the market, the more likelihood of being able to fill your beds and increase food covers. However, in this case, I believe that seasonality and the size of the community, the market, has to be made into an opportunity where it is a lovely community where the bustles of a big urban cities, community, and problems and difficulties are much less or non-existent, and also be able to take advantage of the position and the location of the community between the Twin Cities and to North Dakota and South Dakota. And I do believe that as the Williston Basin gets even more active, and some people say it is going to be, I'm just using it as an example, double the estimate of 3 years ago. And earlier I plastered a somewhat negative image of the oil prospect of having $50 a barrel. I was getting to that, and I think that might be a conspiracy. But compared to 2009 an estimate and 2013 estimate, they have practically doubled their excavation and production estimate. So I am also looking at not just directly from that specific energy industry, that the focus of interest from outside world of various pillar industries is going to energize and then be our marketing effort, a target of our efforts to be able to bring people in. And then primarily, I think I also referred to increase of revenues about the hotel specifically. And there are two key elements, technically speaking. One, to be able to enhance your earnings in the peak season, to optimize it. And two is to be able to increase your volume of business in the off season, so that the gap between the peak season and shoulder season would be minimized. And I believe Mr. Willie Ray has referred to creation of positions, for an example, for the hotel part 40. And in discussing this specific topic, we talked about the national average in the States is about 0.8 person per guest of a hotel. And that is, again, mixture of all different types of hotel products from 3 to 5 stars. 5 stars may obviously have higher number of employees per guest, and the simpler the product and the service delivery, the less number of positions required. However, we looked at what would be the combination of peak season and shoulder season to be able to stabilize the position in numbers at 40, and plus still include the possibility of being able to create many more numbers of positions by having event services, meaning banquets and other specific theme programs. And I believe you have mentioned earlier about the green space in front of the hotel. And what I would like to add, with your permission, is to be able to say it's a wonderful space, and a full-service hotel is always full of programs for all seasons, from snow season to flowers in spring, from music programs, food and beverage programs, and so on. And as a hotelier, I would love to take advantage of that opportunity at a particular space for more revenue, but also to interact and service the beautiful community. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. No.
Any other questions?
Yeah, any other questions? Just wondering, you have a timetable listed here.
I do.
Would you just go through that in a cursory basis?
It is just a suggested time frame because the RFP asked for one, and it's very rough in these early stages, subject to reality and subject to what works best for the city. But I thought that if we took a number of months to negotiate and draft and structure a development agreement, while at the same time the city is conducting due diligence on our group and answering any questions and issues that arise, that it would be realistic to spend those sort of months doing that process. I think if at the end of that process, sometime in September, if we do conclude that this is viable, we're going to go forward, that we would then sign whatever development agreement we've all agreed to, and at that point move forward in a more official capacity. Still, the building would be owned by the city, so they can do their city-conducted number 2, city-conducted bidding and work on the property. And again, that's just a suggested timetable. It may take much longer than that. Probably will take longer in some respects. Number 3, the effort of doing design, engineering, blueprints. Obviously, if we sign an agreement, then we would start engaging these people on a more rigorous time frame. We have hired people to do work on a short fuse, but if we did sign, we'd go forward, and so some of our work would be simultaneous, number 2 and 3. While the city's doing their work, we would be at the same time doing our due diligence, or not due diligence so much as design, engineering, blueprints, get plan check done, and get to a point of getting a permit drawn, so that it's coinciding while the work is being done, you're not wasting time. Then we would need some time to taking these blueprints and plans that have all of the structural calculations, everything laid out on them, so we can get accurate bids. We would take some period of time to get our bids back from contractors, subcontractors, and then engage ourselves to, number 5, renovate the entire complex. Then a short period of time to fixturize the restaurants, put the equipment in, get them up and running, with a hopeful grand opening by December 2015. Could we stick to that? We could. Will it be? Who knows? I'm sure there will be things that arise that we find makes good sense to string it out a little bit. I think at the soonest we could is deliver something by the end of 2015. But from our view, there's no necessity to push it through to any particular timetable other than the one for the historic tax credits to make sure it works in the time limitations.
Thank you. Anything else from the council? Then I will open it up to any questions from the audience, and I will ask you to, if you have comments and so on, to restrict them to 2 minutes each, and I'll ask Lynn here to watch the clock as you go. And please, thank you. We'll ask them to come forward and identify yourself, give us your address, and we'll hear your comments. Anyone? Yes.
Would it be better to hear both sides first and then ask questions or then comments?
Whatever you prefer. That's fine with me. Then, thank you both very, very much, and we'll And next, we'll go to Terrence and the colonnade presentation, if you would, please.
Well, thank you, everybody. It's nice to be back again. And my name is Terrence Schultz. And I first want to thank all of the people over the past 10 years who, if it wouldn't have been for their efforts, their energies, and even their financial commitments that they've done, we probably wouldn't even be here tonight to even have this opportunity. So I think the community owes them a great deal of gratitude for their efforts. Back, just to remind you or refresh you, back in November was the first time I had ever heard of the RTC, based on an article that was in the Minneapolis paper suggesting that if something or somebody does not come up with a concept soon, that the building was going to be demolished. At that point, I called Dan Peterson, who then got me in touch with Harold Staniskowski, and I came up, took a look at the facility, and fell deeply in love with it. I think that's the only way you can describe it. You fall in love with it. And came away knowing that it had merit. There had to be something that could be done with it. And although my first reaction was resort hotel, I mean, it screamed that from the moment you turn the corner and you kind of come up the hill. I mean, it just screamed that at you. But a resort hotel, in my opinion, wasn't going to work unless it had a reason to be there, especially on a complex as large as the RTC. So we actually, or I started, and then momentum gained talking with others in the community and elsewhere, trying to come up with a concept that not only saved the complex, but also created an entity that started to produce an economic development force and a social development that would enhance the city. And that's when we started to move down the path of a wellness center that was more based on functional medicine than just a spa type of facility. And that would mean a facility that was going to help with diabetes, obesity, and other food and nutrition type programming. So as we started looking at this, so many things started to come forward. And yes, the hotel was still a part of it, but not functioning as a freestanding hotel. It's more as the lodging for the patrons that would be coming to the facility for programming. And so therefore, we're not subject to the seasonal shoulders because we're generating our own clientele. We're not beholden to traffic coming through the area. And it also speaks to things such as restaurants and the like. Again, we as an entity, we're not looking necessarily to produce and create restaurants to go against other restaurants and food and beverage establishments in town, but more as a way to handle the programming that is intended to happen. So we're dealing with more of the nutritional aspects of things and the like. The facility lends itself so well for so many things. It has the big gym for athletic activities. It has the grandness of a hotel that then in a marketing of these programs and such gives us the ability to go international, because now people see that this is something really special, a place that you want to go, a place that's got these programs and a reason for wanting to come here. And as we've progressed in this, so much more has opened up to us. And as we have talked with various people within the community, a new push in wellness is art therapy. And our intentions would be to take a portion, I shouldn't say large, but a portion of the building and develop artisan flats and studios that then these artisans would be working with the people there, creating help therapy programming. We've been talking just even within the last day and a half with the potential of a film production company based in California with ties to Minnesota that are looking for a facility back in Minnesota. They want to move their productions back to Minnesota. And so we look at this facility as that could be an incredible accomplishment, to have this budding and growing artisan community that's already established here and bringing in another layer to it and enhancing it. We've been in contact with a number of veterans organizations. And again, working the wellness angle to this, in that so many returning veterans have physical ailments that unless you can heal those ailments, it's hard to control the others. And so it's those types of things that, as we started getting into this, things really started to churn and move. We've thought of, or we've not thought of, we would work with a number of different organizations that we've already contacted to actually create training programs for returning veterans and also people within the community that would like to learn how to do historic preservation work and actually create training programs. We've talked with a number of the state union leaders to see if the unions would be willing to come on board and help with these training programs. They have expressed some interest that they would consider that. So I think that as we're looking at it, I just want everybody to understand that we're not looking at this as just being a development group that is going to take the building and try and create different entities. We're looking at this more as an opportunity to do so much more than that in making these programs work and to give Fergus Falls a position of excellence in this field. In terms of the preservation or how the building would be used, we've gone, even since I was here on the 20th, where a lot of you had seen the layouts that we had proposed for the building, I'm already having a little bit of different thoughts. But none of it changes what, it's more just putting, considering where they would go within the building. The concept stays virtually exactly the same. The thing that I'm now have been looking at is that if we were to have a film production company, where do they go? What makes sense? And with the theater and the arts people and the visual arts people. And so rather than before, where we had the spa taking up most of the kitchen and dining facilities, possibly the artisans and the artisan flats would end up in those areas. The gymnasium could become the film production facility, and that the spa facilities would be connected to the powerhouse building, and with some new construction that would accommodate the pools and the like, that would be easier to put in new construction rather than trying to retrofit it amongst the main building with all of its columns and structural points. In terms of the hotel rooms or things like that, we still are looking in that 160 range requirement. We would still have a events space in the building because of the need for it, just to accommodate our own requirements for meeting spaces and training and the like. We have always had a little portion of the building as condominiums, and we still would oppose that. If at all a hotel aspect of it would probably be done in those spaces in that the condominiums would go into a pool. If the owners are not there, say they are folks that live down south in the winter and want to put their unit into a pool, then the facility would lease out their spaces for them, and they would get in return a fee given back to them. We've looked at, I know a lot of people have asked about all the various buildings. We actually would return the greenhouses back that were torn down because, again, wanting to, and probably would expand the maintenance facilities into aquaculture in order to grow more nutritious vegetables for the facility itself, and in whatever access that we would have could be marketed to local concerns. We estimate, and again, like Mr. Willie says, a lot of this stuff at this point you can only estimate, that we would have somewhere around 250 full and part-time employees to accomplish what we're talking about. And if it's an entity like the film production company or a medical instrument manufacturing company that came forward today would become involved with this, then we're talking considerably more jobs than what we had even originally estimated. Rest assured, my wife and I and my daughter were here on Saturday and got a chance to be up on the RTC property for Summerfest. I can, without any qualms, assure you, we would never touch anything on the green space in front, and would maintain it as under private ownership, because I live with most parklands, most cities don't want it, kind of thing, but we would maintain it under private ownership with the understanding that it is for use by the public. We would also like to take a fair amount of the grounds, work with the arts community and gardening clubs to create a fair amount of gardens and probably a sculpture garden with walking trails and stuff, so that the whole area becomes something that everybody's proud of and wants to bring family, friends, and just come up and enjoy. In terms of financing, I mean, obviously, this is a major undertaking. We would be looking at private investors, historic tax credits, the EB5, the new markets, and foundations and grants because of the programs that we're going to establish. And we would be working with a number of the major grants, foundations in the country to be sponsors for a lot of these programs. Along with the, working with the arts community, we'd also would continue to work with the Historic Society and present them with space within the building so that they can continue a ongoing exhibit of what the Kirkbride was, and so that that history is always kept in the forefront of everybody. We would love to work with the Friends of the Kirkbride and still, maintaining tours and that interpretiveness of what was there and, now how it has changed into a new healing place. That's, in a nutshell, a little bit of what we're trying to do. On May 20th, when I was before the council the first time and gave you the presentation I did at that time, I had said that at the time, we weren't ready. We were a few months away from where we would have liked to have been to make the presentation. We were still in the process of figuring exactly what it was we wanted to do. We were still in the process of trying to get the team together that we knew we would need for this. As a friend of mine once said, you're only as smart as the people you surround yourself with. I'm smart enough to know I don't know all the answers. But there are people that I have now been introduced to that do know the answers. And just on Saturday, I had the pleasure of walking a gentleman around the property by the name of Lonnie Morgan. And Lonnie has graciously agreed to be our business consultant and financial manager in this project, and has already, within the last day and a half, when we realized things were not going to progress as a joint venture, has already gotten commitments from about 8 Minnesota individuals who have come forward and said, we want this building to be maintained, and we as Minnesotans are going to step forward and do that. I do have copies of that for you because I know that has always been a major concern of everybody's, can you raise the money? Do you have the connections to do that? We have also spoken with firms that specialize just in the whole historic tax financing programs and how all of that is done. They would be part of the team and handle that aspect of it. We have talked with locally with all builders to potentially be part of this. Shaw Lundquist down in Egan, and probably the biggest potential player would be Ryan Construction out of Minneapolis, and specifically with their Historic Preservations Office out of Cedar Rapids, Iowa, which is, they were the construction firm that was responsible for the renovation of the Rainbelt Brewery in Minneapolis, and also the Lake Street Sears catalog building that was turned into condominiums and what's called World Market. So, like I said, we're in the process of putting this team together. It's because of the fact that we're trying to do so much more than just develop the property. It has taken us longer because we need that ability to be able to say to people, this is what we need from you. Can you step forward and help us and be part of this? And what's fun is to know that there are a large group of people out there that are starting to step forward and have faith in what we believe could be something really special and something more than just another development kind of thing. I guess at that, open for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Are there questions? Yes, Tim.
Yes, Mr. Schultz, thank you once again for being here. I just want to say that I applaud the creativity of your approach, and I also applaud the extent to which you work with members of the local community to listen to their interests and to what they would like to have done with this property. What I see lacking in your proposal, as I'm sure you're aware, are specifics as to how exactly this would be financed. And I know that you've alluded to the potential sources. But what I'd like to know is how soon you could come up with more specific figures and specific sources as to how this would be paid for.
Speaking with Lonnie just this afternoon, he believes, I mean, we would love 4 months, you know, I mean, that would be ultimate. But at the same time, you know, probably 4 weeks we could have a lot of this cemented. I mean, the fact that he was able to do what he has done for us in a day and a half is absolutely pulling a rabbit out of the hat, I'll be honest.
Thank you.
Jay.
What would be, I have kind of a big picture comment, then you can kind of respond how you'd like. Some of these ideas, obviously, we talk about things like, you know, diabetes, obesity, food, nutrition, wellness, functional medicine, therapy. Do you have any healthcare entities that are actually on board with you or are a partner with you at this point in time that would be able to provide those things?
Yeah, we're in this, again, it's been really difficult for us to get anybody to commit without a commitment, if that makes any sense. But we do have a number of people who have stepped forward and said, yes, if you're moving forward this, if you have the ability to move forward with this, we definitely want to be involved with you. I mean, we've gotten one group that has said that they would help finance finding a director for the facility on that medical aspect.
What I'm thinking of is, okay, if we're saying we're going to provide dietary stuff, exercise therapy, I mean, those are like healthcare professionals.
Well, some of
I'm thinking,
yeah, some of it
what
is
entity is providing that service for your plan?
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Some of it is health, but a lot of it is done by other entities too. I mean, you get into, you're basically at that point you're creating what's called a medical spa. Kind of thing. And so the exercise and that end of it is done by exercise professionals, you know, kind of thing. The nutrition aspect, yes, you're going to have a nutritionist on board. You're going to have a food service staff that understands how to prepare foods and teach classes on how to do that. You're going to need physical therapists, you're going to need psychologists, and all of those entities are going to have to be there to be part of it. And again, those are, as we keep moving forward, we're getting a greater understanding of the people who are willing to step forward. Am I going to tell you, I can list you 6 names right now of the people that want the positions? No, I can't do that. But can I realize or understand that there are people out there with the means by which to be able to allow us to start to create those interviews with people and find out, yes, I want to be part of this. Yeah, we do have that.
My big picture is outside of people that you've talked to and you've shared ideas with, which it is nice to talk to the people and see what people in the community want. Outside of people you've shared ideas with and bounced ideas off, do you have any business partners or group of people that would say, we're in Colonnade or whatever, this is us, this is the 50 of us, these are the investors.
Well, that's what I was saying.
That can raise equity.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, that's what we just got in the last day and a half.
was that 8 people or something that you're?
Yeah, I mean, it's 8 fairly significant people that are starting to step forward. And like I said, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this hasn't been an uphill battle. It has. And part of that is because you're right. It is a big picture. It's a huge picture. And that's why I'm saying, this huge picture doesn't happen in 6 months, 2 weeks, kind of thing. Like I mentioned, we made that presentation on the 20th because we felt we had to, so that we would at least be able to stay in the game.
Do you have a time frame in mind for development?
Like I said originally, my time frame is that now that we have a clear understanding where we're going with it. That's part of it too. We had to define where we wanted to be and where we were going with it. Now that we've got that, and we've now started to get some financial backing to where we can say, we've got something here. Again, we would like to be ready to go into development agreement with the city within 6 months, easily, so that we can keep moving, kind of thing.
Would you consider that you'd be renovating the entire property as it sits, or would it be in part and parcel as you moved along?
My feeling is you do it. My feeling is you do it all at once, because again, how do you have guests in that building and jackhammers or whatever are going off at 7 in the morning? You can't run an operation that way, in my opinion. So I'm figuring, a year for us to get all of the drawings, everything ready to go, all the engineering, probably a minimum about 2 years into construction, at which time we do all the marketing so that we're ready to go at the time it opens, and be ready to open basically in about 3 years.
Other questions? Scott?
Do you have anybody that's experienced in this on your group that's done something familiar to this, I should say, at a spa?
Lonnie's been involved in a lot of these kinds
Of a spa?
Yeah, we'd also, again, I'm a firm believer, you bring in experts who know this stuff. I've already contacted a spa management firm that I've actually had to hold off from having them come up here. I said, at this point, until I know something, I'm not going to waste a lot of your time. They're chomping at the bit to get up here and tell me how's the best way to do this and getting the marketing plans going and everything. So again, it's going to be a group of people that have to, like I said, I'm not an expert at this. I'm not going to tell you I am. But like I said, you have to surround yourself with the kind of people that have the knowledge, that understand these things.
Anybody else? I guess I'd like to ask both developers, it seems to me you both have something very special to bring to the RTC campus, and it is an enormous facility. What is preventing us from utilizing the talents and the ideas of both?
Who wants to answer that first? That we went into this process since the May 20th, when we were asked, can you sit down together and figure out a way to do this? And I believe on our part, and I guess everybody will have their own opinion, had come to a point where we thought we had, based on, now I want to say one other thing, based on the notion of when we started this process that they were looking at doing the housing and the restaurants was their main emphasis at that time, because at that point historic properties didn't have a hotel person in hand. And so we said, yeah, let's work together, let's figure this out. And it had even gotten to a point where we thought we understood that if we had agreed to a certain parceling out of the properties, that there was an agreement. That then changed. And so at that point, when you look at their complex and what they're proposing, we were basically offered an opportunity to lease spa space. Leasing spa space wasn't going to work. I mean, our facility and what we're looking at was not going to be housed in some off corner of the complex. That wasn't going to be a possibility. And so it became our position. We feel strongly enough about what we're trying to accomplish that rather than take a cast off, we'd rather take the concept elsewhere. And that was the decision we had to make.
Thank you. Jay?
I just want to say, just from my comment the last time that I spoke on this issue, I was pretty clear that, hey, you figure it out or you don't, but be ready to present today, right? Have your financials to Mr. Mattson, have your plans of specificity here, and even if you thought something might be worked out, it's in everyone's best interest to make sure you're ready to go tonight. So I'm sorry it didn't work out too, but we're going to have to take what we have from each of you tonight and make an informed decision after we meet and find out what was provided to Mr. Mattson in terms of financials and other stuff. But that's just the way it is. I was very clear on what I stated from here. That's what I was expecting if it could be.
I think the other thing is, Hal, is that they both have their ideas of what should be done with the whole complex, and I don't see any way that they can work the two of them together, because they both are using the full complex for what they want. And it gets down to a point where we're going to have to choose one or the other.
Scott?
Our goal was to we want to save it, and now we're saving it. Whichever one we choose, the goal was to save it. We went through with Mr. Peterson, and so we've achieved that goal tonight. We'll have to pick one or the other, or go from there. So we achieved our goal, and so that's just the way it's going to have to be. Whoever gets it, we'll decide that in the next half hour, I suppose.
Anyone else?
I can just make one more comment.
Yes.
I know where you're coming from. I too do understand that. Like I said, as of Thursday, actually Friday, we thought we had an agreement.
Well, the reason I said that before is I don't think each of you would have a side of the story about that. Right. And I'm not interested in that.
And I'm not trying to, and that's not where I was going.
The safe thing to do is come here with a full-on presentation and with your financials lined up and things you can do. Because that's what you do when you're trying to obtain property and pitch an idea. So I know that everybody has their own side about what may or may not have occurred, and that's what happens when you're developing things in dealing with real estate. So here we are today.
Yes, I'd just like to make an observation for the record. I had hoped that we would be deciding on a joint agreement this evening. Clearly, that seems off the table to me. We're in the unenviable position now of deciding between one developer or the other, each of which has considerable merit to their proposals. And I just wanted to observe that two of our key council members are not here this evening. And I would find it regrettable to decide without the input of Mr. Sinselin and Mr. Hicks, as well as the constituents they represent.
Anyone else? Is that the end of the council questions? Thank you, Mr. Schultz.
Thank you very much.
We will open it up for audience comments, whatever. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we'll provide a 2-minute limit to each comment and hopefully no repeats. And so that we will then, upon that concluding, will recess, will adjourn to a closed meeting to consider the sale of the RTC property. We will reconvene after that deliberation. And now, if you wish, please come forward and identify yourself, your address, and please limit your comments to 2 minutes.
My name is Lois Josephson, 506 South Union. I am one of the constituents of Mr. Hicks and Mr. Sinstolin. And yes, I would like to have my council member's voice heard here tonight. I would also like to point out that we are here at a special meeting of this council that was called explicitly to enable historic properties to make a low-income tax credit application on the 18th of June. The hearing that was, or the council meeting on the 20th of May, where Mr. Scholes spoke and where he said we weren't ready to present yet and had been given no indication that we were going to need to be ready with a full proposal on the 20th of May. And if he had not come that night, tonight wouldn't even be taking place because the council was focused very strongly on enabling and supporting historic properties in making a timely low-income tax credit application on the 18th of June. We have no cause to ask this council to act tonight on a decision because there are no low-income tax credit housing applications going in on the 18th of June. Secondly, on the 20th of May, when the council put off acting when historic properties presented on the 6th of May, so that they could hear Mr. Scholes on the 20th of May, we did not know at the time that the council adjourned on the 20th whether or not there would be an extension of the state bonding. There was an extension of the state bonding. And as our city newspaper said, we now have the fabulous situation of 2 capable developers and 3.5 more years to develop this property. Let's let those developers have the time to do full-blown quality proposals and not act on an artificial deadline that no longer exists.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Maxine Schmidt, friend of the Kirkbride. Our goal all along has been, yes, save the building, but also until reuse, redevelopment can be found, and job creation. That has always been our goal. Bring jobs to Fergus Falls. We need job creation for our young people. They can come back home after college, find a good paying long-term job, and we don't have that right now. And I don't see that Historic Properties is going to do a lot of that. They're bringing tourists in, and sure, there will be, hotel staff, restaurant staff, but where is the long-term, good-paying job creation with that? I myself, and I will probably be very personal here, but the Historic Properties, if that had been the first and only proposal, I probably would have been the happiest person in town. But hearing about Mr. Schultz and the passion that he has for this place and what he wants to do includes bringing good jobs into Fergus Falls. And I think his can be complementary to everything we now have, whereas some of the Historic Properties proposal sounds like it's going to be in competition with some of what we have. Bigwood Event Center, what will happen with that, I don't know. So let's not make a quick decision tonight. You do not need to. As Lois said, we now have that extension from the state. Let's use it. There is no need to make a decision tonight. And I agree with Tim that this is probably the most important decision this city has made in years. And please do not rush into it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lori Mullen, 2840 Lakewood Drive. Again, just what's been mentioned here. We have the extension. Let's use some common sense here and take advantage of that. We are looking for the highest and the best use of that property. If we make a decision tonight, we haven't given ourselves the chance to fully examine the other developer's proposal. We need to give Terrence more time to bring his 8th investors forward, or whoever. There's no fire here, folks. It doesn't need to be decided tonight. Thank you.
Anyone else? May I? Okay, yeah, please come forward.
Yes, Glenn Rosentrader, 643 West Lincoln Avenue, Fergus Falls, and I'm a friend of the Kirkbride, and I've been to these city council meetings before, and thank you, city council members and mayor, for bringing us to the point that we're at tonight and further into the future. And thank you, developers, both of you, because a year ago we were looking pretty sad. And thank you, Bill, for what you've done at the state level, and also Bud Nurnis at the state level for getting us the extension that we do have. And I just want to say thank you to everyone and appreciate what's being done, and thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I've meant to include a comment thanking our legislators, Representative Bud Nornis and Senator Bill Ingebrigtsen, who played key roles in getting us that extension, along with some bipartisan support from key legislators, and we're extremely grateful, and this is our opportunity. Yes, please come forward.
Hi, Holly Diesler, 409 East Vernon. I'm a friend of the Kirkbride, also as part of the Project Kirkbride, so I want to thank the council for allowing us to do that. It was an amazing weekend and experience. I too want to just reiterate what everyone else said. There's no fire, there's no rush. I love, just like Maxine said, if this was the only proposal, it sounds fabulous too. And I think both things sound promising as an artist, you know, and I think this proposal sounds awesome too. And I still think there's more time that we could possibly come to a mediation to involve both parties still mutually, possibly if given more time. I was speaking with someone from the cities over the last week at the Arts and Culture Summit who would be more than willing to step in and do some mediation, you know, facilitate some different ideas, you know, maybe the housing could still be the artist flats kind of thing. You know, there still could be possible ways to combine both ideas, I think. So just with some more time, maybe if we could just give it a little more time. Otherwise, both, I think I'd be just happy to have it utilized in any way, but I think we just don't need to rush. So.
Thank you.
I guess I'd be interested in hearing the developer's response to the public opinion. Is that a concern?
My response would be that I hear that and I understand and appreciate those concerns. One thing off the top of my head, 3.5 years sounds like a lot of time, but you'd be surprised at how long these projects take. Not that we could delay it a few months, but we don't have a lot of time with 3.5 years to actually finish this project. We did make a proposal to Mr. Schultz whereby we laid out a program for him to implement his wellness center spa into the larger context of a hotel. Most spas are add-on features, important ones, but they're add-on features to a larger hotel. Most of them. There's a few standalone. We offered that without any money. We would do it all on our funds and provide as many rooms as he wanted, 100% of the rooms if he wanted. And I understand that business fluctuates. We told him that we could be flexible. You could take all the rooms, none of the rooms, 1, 2, whatever amount, according to how the market would go for the wellness concept. Same thing was true of all the amenities. We offered all of those, at all of it at a extremely reasonable rate of lease or rent. We felt that as a developer we would have to control the property and not split it out to different ownership groups for a number of reasons. Part of it is the tax credits, but the biggest one is having the control. And this takes me to the larger issue that is a major concern for us. I think the ideas expressed tonight by Mr. Schultz are great ideas. It's a great idea. It really is. It's a great plan. Moving from a great idea to reality or to being able to implement the plan is a huge leap, and not specific for his, but for anybody, for us too. It's a big leap. It's a big jump. On the one hand, you have a plan or an idea, a business concept, and there could be a lot of good ideas to go out there that I could fathom. We looked at a variety of options and tried to pick what we thought would work, what would is in best interest of us as a group and the community. But the ability to perform and carry out that plan is 95% or more of the issue. Just simply having an idea, unless you can perform on that idea, and that's where our concern comes with a concept like that, and that's where we felt that we could implement part of that in the larger context, but not just a wellness center. Our offer still stands to Mr. Schultz. Without a penny out of his pocket, we'll deliver it all. We'll completely renovate the entire complex and accommodate, as he expressed originally in our dinner meeting, what his needs were as far as rooms, amount of rooms, and amenities. All the amenities that we planned could be an integral part of that, would work perfect for that. Therapy rooms, all the things that we've detailed. So, in terms of the question of being able to work together, we're still willing to do that, but in the context not of a co-ownership of the property and co-control. I would not cede co-ownership and control to the Bagel Coffee place, for example. They are a tenant leasing part of that. Or any of these other, they're all part of that mix. It's not a partnership, and our partnership is well-defined. It's long-standing relationships for years and years, decades with some of these folks that we've done projects. We're not looking to introduce another third-party person as part of that investment group. We're not asking for any money. In fact, we said, we'll do it all, not a nickel, if that's what would help. So that was our offer, and our offer still stands.
Thank you. Mr. Schultz, any concluding statement before we go to our closed session?
I'm not even quite certain how to respond without getting into a situation that I don't want to go down in a public hearing. To say that all this stuff was offered to us is a little bit misleading. Again, like I said earlier, yes, it's vaguely offered, but there's no definition as to what kind of space, nor I ever think there was any understanding of what kind of space we required. And again, what I just want everybody to understand, we weren't coming in here to build a hotel spa. And yes, that's fine and dandy. And it's great to say, well, you have real use of the rooms. his rooms are being offered by a third party. We don't have any contracts. We have nothing to say. We don't know what's going to happen down the road. What happens down the road in 5 years, another organization takes over the hotel, and now we've got this system up, and now we're depending on another person. And I think that's when it went from, is there a way that the two of you can work as co-developers, owners of the property, to them becoming the dominant owner and us becoming subservient to their requirements and leads, is when we decided that we could not at that point be part of that, because it went from being equals to being master and slave, in our opinion. I mean, I know that's an exaggeration of terms, but in a lot of ways, that's the way it felt, kind of thing. Because when we left that first time, it was my understanding, and I think, my understanding was that the city wanted us to work together to try and come up with a program that we both worked equally, not one over the other. And that's where I think our problem lies, in their so-called generous offer to us.
Excuse me.
Thank you. Stan?
Mr. Sol, my question was, do you have any concerns for us delaying the decision for a couple of weeks? Any concerns about that? Yeah.
No, I have absolutely none. I mean, obviously, I probably would be in favor of it. I have no concerns.
Then we are ready to adjourn to a closed session, and we will come back and reconvene again and go forward from there. We'll ask the council to go this time. Our meeting, and thank you all for your patience. And I'll call on Kent Madsen to address the issue as we have it at the moment.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to recap, the council went into a closed session to evaluate proposals to award redevelopment rights to the Kirkbride campus. The council discussed the pluses and minuses of the proposals. The developers gave consideration to the various criteria that are set forth in the RFP document that was provided to the developers, and a consensus was reached that there would be a motion to adopt a resolution to award the development rights to Historic Kirkbride LLC and authorize entering into a letter of intent as the next step.
Would someone offer that resolution?
I'll offer it, Your Honor.
Scott?
I'll second that.
Jay? Any discussion, any comments?
Can you repeat the resolution, please?
Would you restate the resolution?
That the council would adopt a resolution to proceed with Historic Kirkbride LLC as the developer of the RTC campus and authorize entering into a letter of intent with the developer as the next step.
We have a motion and a second.
I second it, and then I just make a comment. This is just from my point of view. I think today should be seen as a victory for Fergus Falls, because we found what we believe is a qualified and professional developer that can save the entirety of the complex, which has been a goal for a lot of people in this room and a lot of people on the council. We think at this point in time it's the best choice for getting this thing redeveloped and have the backing and the professionals around them to do it. So that's the reason for my vote this one.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I could just
Ben?
make a comment, Your Honor. I appreciate the comments that were made from the community members in the audience. And for 8 years that I've been working on this issue as part of the council, to have a developer, let alone two, that with this kind of proposal and this kind of ideas is it's pretty exciting. But I think it's clear to me tonight, as much as I appreciate the proposal of Mr. Schulz, that we have a developer who's ready to go, who's ready to save this building, and who can get this done. And I'm excited and to work and move forward. And I think, I echo what Jay said, I think this is a positive thing. I hope that it's not seen as anything but positive from anyone.
Yes, Tim?
Yes, just one final observation. I do want to thank both developers for their passion and their commitment to saving the Kirkbride. As numerous audience members mentioned in their comments, if any one of these single developers had come forward, say 6 months ago, everyone would have been thrilled. We were fortunate to have two such developers. And I would be thrilled to see the community get behind the effort that is about to proceed in the redevelopment of the Kirkbride and to make this once again a positive and just an historic occurrence for this community.
Any other comments? Roll call, please.
Sycos.
Yes.
Runquist.
Yes.
Sinstone.
Yes.
Shire.
Yes.
Rachels.
Yes.
Fish.
Yes.
The resolution is approved, and a sincere thank you to Mr. Schultz and to Mr. Willie and Mr. No. And we are very fortunate. And now, yes, let's support the effort and move forward. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.